All right, we're back. The Sons podcast. We're still figuring out what this podcast is. So, this episode, we're going to talk about spirituality and religion. Not the history of it, because we don't know enough about that, but our own experience with spirituality.
Our history with it, our history.
Yeah.
We could take it back to when we were sons.
Yeah,
when
I
we
feel
were
like
first sons.
let's start. Like, what's your earliest memory of that, whatever that is? And again, I feel like spirituality is this weird cop out word that sort of millennials use, just like instead of saying God, they say the universe. They say the universe has a plan. The universe wants me to get this job. It's like your grandparents just said God, same thing, but whatever that is,
Right.
that thing that's outside of yourself, what's your earliest memory of that?
Yeah, I mean, I have it. I have that in my life from like the very first memory I have, like because my dad, I mean, my family in general, but my dad in particular is a very like religious man, and he he grew up Catholic. He was an altar boy. His dad would have been Catholic, and was probably an altar boy. And and when he was growing up, he was always like a part not only of like the church in that way, going to Catholic school, being an altar boy, but within like the community. And back then too, I feel like the church was so much more tied into the community, as like we've seen that kind of like
How old
fray
is your
apart.
dad?
But how old is he?
Yeah.
So he was 27 when he had me. I'm about to be 40, so he's about to be 67.
So he was born in
and
the late 50s.
Sure. Yeah, I do think could his birthday have been 1959?
My mom is turning
1960,
60 and she was born in 66. So if your dad's 67, then he was born in 59.
There you go.
Ish.
Yeah, so we've always gone to church. I was baptized in a church. I went to a Catholic school. I was an altar boy. My dad, it's funny because like my parents prayed at dinner, but I guess I always see it as like my dad prayed at dinner and my dad led us through a prayer at dinner. And when I was I would have been in grade school, I was going to church like 3 times a week because I would go on Sunday every Sunday with my parents and my family. And Wednesdays through school, we would go like Wednesday afternoon. And I think for a while, was an altar boy at like 7:00 in the morning on Tuesdays, where I would like go in, be an altar boy, then go like right across the street and go to school as soon as that was over, like a 30-minute mass. So I just had like religion in my life forever. But I've, pushed against it for sure, and don't go to church on my own, when not kind of motivated for some other reason. But like I could just have it all. I always had it in my life in that way. And I think I was pushed against it, or just like, it just was like going to school, I guess, when I think about it. It's like, it was just so there in my life that whatever, I always expected to do it. I was always trying to get out of it as I got like into like, I always felt bad if I went to a friend's house. I would be like, oh yeah, we're going to go to church. We're going to, whatever. And then like never go. And then feel like I was, doing something wrong all the next couple, like waiting for my parents to ask me if I went. And then I'd have to lie to them, tell them I didn't.
So do you feel
yeah,
like you never
so,
really like felt, you didn't like, something wasn't connecting, right? Like could you, your relation to those practices, because it's like religion is the church, the institution, and the ceremonies, and if there's no spiritual connection, then they're just like a pain in the ass, right? Like it's like, why like,
totally. I mean, yeah, I don't.
Did you ever have like that
don't think
conflict
I
with your
ever
dad where he was just trying to make you feel it and you just couldn't, or like?
So my dad he has been really good with, so when I think about the pushback, there was that, but it was more about going and being there. It wasn't about the feelings you were having. Although he has tried to relay like what faith is to him. And, again, like it's so in his life. If you're driving with him and he passes by an ambulance or he passes by a church or a hospital, like one of those three, he's always doing kind of like a silent sign. It's in his, it's so present in him. Do you know what I mean? Like his sort of like faith, and he's always tried to sort of like impart that on me as a way, I think, to be like, this is why I do this. This is what I'm doing. And my, but he's never, if he did, I can't think of like a moment. I can think of times my mom has pushed back against me with it. But my dad has always just been more about like the tradition of it. And this is what it means to me rather than like pushing it on me. My mom has actually confronted me in saying that, like, cause my brother is much more, my brother's my dad. He's, got 4 kids. He's a doctor. The life he's living is very similar to my dad, but also like within his faith and all of that. He takes his kids to church. They go every Sunday. They pray at dinner. They pray probably before bed. They do all the things that we used to do. And, my mom has said to me, like, how is it that, your brother like is doing all of these things and you don't believe in God at all? And that's not true. That's not true. That's never true. But like I think my actions to her are, if you don't go to church, if you don't pray, if you don't bring God in the sense that he is for like Catholics into your life in an active, viewable way, that you're not like, that you don't believe in God. That's not, but like you're saying, like God, it can be called different things and it can be thought of framed in different ways and all that. And I've struggled in moments when I talk to my parents in general, but when I talk to my mom, especially, where I just kind of like, the guy I've become is, he never has a fucking voice around my mom. Do you know what I mean? I don't know why. It's just like, the reality of it is, when I'm around her, I talk like, and I act like who I used to act like. And when I'm around her, I fall into these like things. And so I've found it very hard in my sort of like recent years of discovery about like, or even just putting thought towards this. It's hard for me to frame it for her. And in part because like, I want to just say, since doing mushrooms, I've thought about the world in this way. And this is the thing that sort of cracked this for me. But it's difficult because I can't really have that. That puts up too many walls for her. We're not going to have a good spiritual conversation after I say that. So I can't say that. And, but I don't know. So I haven't seen, in short, that like pushback from my dad in that way, but from my mom, I've had that. And I've had a couple of those moments, and I've tried, especially since having kids, to like put them at ease. If there's a war, because there is, I see them going through a real struggle in their 5 children, and how only really one of them seems to be on the right path when it comes to that. My sisters push really hard against it in what feels like personal ways that I think are muddled up by a lot of thoughts and whatever. But they push back really hard on that.
Against the
and so I tried
thing with their kids. Is that what you mean?
For sure, with it for their kids, and like, all the things that are attached to religion and Catholicism too, and all those things. They just really push back on that a lot. And so I tried to be a lot more like empathetic of how, one, like, what the fuck, this is what they believe. This makes them happy. That's the first thing. Like going to church with them, when, especially seeing when they come here with my kids, like the way that the reaction that they're having, it's like, but you can give this to them. Like, why are you pushing? Why are you fighting? Like, can't you find the thing that it means for you in this? Which is something that I've like learned to do, which is like, okay, there are all these things that I think it's the like, it's the storytelling part of it. It's the literal taking of that story that always bothers me. It's certainly some of the attitude that's attached to that stuff too, that has nothing to do with religion, just the people, that, and the political side of it. Definitely all that stuff bothers me, but you can be there And like you were saying, one of these times that we were talking about these sort of like Christ figure, like the idea, of what this is, like, I think if you can switch that and just start to think of how it works for you in particular and not how it worked for some dude 2000 years ago was trying to explain this stuff. Like, I think that shift is something that comes like with maturity and also like different moments of awakening within your life, you know?
Yeah. Like well, I'll just quickly tell you my like history with like the religion aspect.
Please, I was going to just say, I was very curious because I actually, when I was thinking about this, I don't know anything about how you grew up in that sense. And like,
So,
I assume it was with some level of it in your life, but
so
please let
you
me know.
know a bit about my history, which will save the details for another episode, but suffice it to say it was not stable. You know, there were adults doing drugs and alcohol, and there was a lot of chaos. And like, picture what you would picture a healthy environment for a kid to be in, and it was rarely ever that. It was that when I would go to my great grandmother's house, pretty much. But but you know, I would be taken to church, and as a kid, I remember being so incredibly bored, just like so bored. Okay. But I want to save that idea of like boredom because I feel like something I come back to that and kind of, I feel like the boredom is part of it, is built into the experience. But I never really, as a kid, never really, it was just something I went to. But it was this environment where everybody was super nice. And I think I got really lucky that I was in a church. It was a Lutheran church where it wasn't this judgmental, shitty attitude, people looking down on you, or it was a small community. I mean, it probably helps that like my grandmother's grandparents helped build that church. Like, German immigrants came to town, built a Lutheran church. The church all spoke German for several generations until, you know, no one spoke German anymore. But everyone was just super kind. And like, I have all these memories of like, I was going to uh, confirmation classes and, you know, where you talk with the pastor and then waiting for my ride to come after, and it's freezing and I'm standing out in the snow waiting, and this guy that would go to the church stood and just waited with me and like made small talk with me, and like I'm getting choked up because that little act was like something that rarely happened to me as a kid. An adult is paying attention to me, is asking me questions, is like, oh, this is embarrassing, I'm gonna cut that out. But you know, but that resonated clearly, it still does. So like little moments like that, I think I started to sort of cling to that stability in a way. And like, again, it helped that I was clinging to something that was legitimately, you know, it didn't have these darker aspects to it that some churches as a, you know, as an institution have. No one tried to diddle me. There's none of that. Uh, as I got a little older, I was like, I don't know if they just sensed I was like engaged in it in some way, but like I would just go with the pastor would ask if I wanted to join him to go to like, he would take communion to old people that were too old to go to church anymore. And I said, okay. So I went with him. It was like the pastor and me. And we would go to these old people's houses and the old folks' home. Old people. I mean, people who were like probably had a few weeks to live, and you know, and we would just go and he would administer communion to them. That was the reason on the surface why we're there. But I realized it's like we would just talk to them. They don't have anyone to talk to. No one comes to visit. Like you would be, and I worked in an old folks home for a summer after, like during college in the kitchen. You would be shocked. Like no one visits old people in these homes. Their kids kind of it's a cliche, but it's true. It's like their kids kind of stick them in these homes to put them somewhere where they feel like they're safe, and then they don't have to worry about them anymore. But they're sad places, and people are always dying. Like imagine living in a community where like someone's new is dead almost every week or every month. So anyway, I realized like, oh, we're doing we're doing like we're doing something real here. You know, we're not just like standing in a pulpit and saying, this is what's right and you should think about that. It's like, oh, sorry. I don't know why it touches me, I guess. It makes me feel thankful, grateful to have had that vision to be able to see that version of that institution of the church, Christianity. So that had a big impact on me. But this is a really weird thing. I would say I still drifted from it. I still was kind of around it, but it wasn't connecting. And people say, here's a cliche phrase, the Lord works in mysterious ways. And these old people would say that, and it's like, okay, what does that mean? But it's when you experience it, meaning like God can use things that you would never associate with being religious or being something that, you know, if you believe in God, I think you have to assume that God can use anything. God can use sinful acts. God can use evil. He can twist it and bend it and use it. You know, it's like this weird thing that's happened. Anyway, I don't know what I'm saying, but point is, when I was in middle school, that movie Dogma came out. That what's that guy's name? Kevin Smith.
Kevin Smith.
Yeah. And it's got like Chris Rock in it and Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. And it's this like heavily Catholic, like Dogma related comedy. But I watched that. I was probably in like middle school, and I watched that, and something about it made me feel like, oh, this could be real. This isn't just a thing we're doing. This is like there's like, it's embarrassing to get choked up talking about Dogma, but like it put this idea in my child brain that what if there is this sort of invisible war happening, this battle over our souls, and we're like really important. We're part of a very important battle happening. I don't know. Something like that made it very tangible for me and got me super into it then I feel like I emotionally connected with something where like, no, this is good and evil. This is real. So I like read the Bible. I read the whole Bible through like around this age. But what started to happen as I got into high school was like, I had a very particular idea based on what I was reading in the Bible and based on what I felt. Then I would go to church and I would not necessarily be picking up the same message. Like the message felt really weak, like the sort of like fuzzy and you know, people are just like eyes glazing over, and you know, something wasn't connecting. Anyway, fast forward college, when we met, I was still dedicated, but then now the only real outlet for that sort of religious impulse was to go to this Christian group called The Body. I don't know if you ever heard of that group on campus at Point Park, but it was all these like, so I was Lutheran. You know, Lutheran's like 1 degree over from Catholic. It's the first Protestant religion. It's just since the Protestant Reformation, a split happened, and then splits kept happening. So you have these non-denominational religions that are like way off from sort of so far now from where Catholicism is that it's kind of, for someone who identifies more with as a Catholic or as a traditional Lutheran, these things are just like, you know, it's guys with guitars, it's people putting their hand in the air, it's a lot of like extroversion, which I just found. I'm a hidden introvert. Like I can put on the extroverted mask, but I find it incredibly draining to be around people sometimes. And but I would go to this group because it was a community and it was a religious community, but like there was a lot of these Southern non-denominational people. And I just picked up all these prickly, sharp edges from these people. Like their world was tied together with such tight, it was all so tight, and their boners and their horniness was like just fighting to get out. And the whole thing was just like shaking with this contained tension of their worldview, that if you suggested anything that was like a degree off from that, the binding would pop and the whole thing would fall apart. And so it was a very tense place. And so I went to it all through college and just kind of didn't like these people and didn't like the whole non-denominational thing. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm kind of trying to fast forward through this phase. I studied abroad in Paris my last semester, and I didn't go to church at all the whole time. And I started having sex. I had a girlfriend, and like I was drinking and living in Paris, and like I got really far away from the act of going to church, and the concept of whatever I was connected with started to drift. I come back from Paris. We'd graduated by then. Everyone I knew moved. I didn't go to the graduation ceremony. And then I heard about this book, The God Delusion, by Richard Dawkins, atheist, super smart guy, makes the like airtight case that God is a delusion, and here's why, and he's an atheist. I read the book and I'm like, I'm an atheist. That's it. He's convinced me. Those were all silly, childish, whatever that was, that phase. I'm an adult. I'm an intelligent adult. I am an atheist. And that basically kicked off the darkest period of my life, where life then, the only real goal then became have as much sex as you can, make as much money as you can. Your career now is everything, because if you don't have a career, you're nothing. You're literally nothing. Like if you don't make something of yourself now while you're alive, you are completely worthless. There's no, the universe is just going to swallow you up and you'll be forgotten about. Yeah. And I drank a lot. I was just kind of like trying to have cheap sex, and just, it got really dark. And, I probably the lowest point during that phase was like, I drank way too much one night and then came home and was freaking out, like felt like I was dying, had my roommate, Mark Chorney, call an ambulance. And like, I went to the fucking hospital, and they just gave me an IV and kind of chuckled at me, and I was fine, but I took it way too far. And, anyway, it took me years until I first did mushrooms. To the first mushroom experience obliterated that I'm an atheist. All that there is this and science. And that first mushroom experience, I traveled back in time and re-experienced something I experienced as a baby, is the only way I can express it. And I sensed I sensed from when I was a baby, there was a bit of my code that got what am I trying to say? A part of my essential base code was off since I've been a baby. And I got to go back and observe that and kind of understand why I've become the person I've become and how that rippled out through the years. And long story short, after that, that blew and then we've had experiences together where, even if separately, but at the same time, I've experienced beings and what appeared to be gods and whole environments and experiences where it felt like, I encountered that place where all meaning comes from, and it was actively, consciously trying to convey something to me and download concepts into my human monkey brain for the betterment of myself and the world and, higher order, everything. So that obliterated the atheist thing. And then, I don't know. I guess I'll round it off. Like, I feel like those experiences opened some kind of a visionary doorway in my mind or something, but over the past few years, I've been reconnecting with like with Christianity, with Christ. And I found myself really drawn towards Catholicism and the Virgin Mary, and kind of like connect. And to me, it's all about like connecting with what is the like tradition without connection is like boring and meaningless and lifeless. But like when you have some kind of connection. So the last time I did mushrooms, I had this incredibly powerful encounter with what came to me as a effeminate female giant eagle, a white eagle. And it picked me up and it took me someplace. And then it did this sort of like performance in which it showed me how we're all one, but we've all shattered into a million pieces. And the whole like idea is that we have to do, our purpose is to put those pieces back together. And, you know, in time, that since the trip, that eagle I've associated with the Virgin Mary. I know that's like a leap, but it's just since these mushroom trips, opening myself up to sort of the Christian stories again, and the stories of Jesus, and the stories of, you know, all of these things, going to Catholic churches and experiencing the ceremonial things, the you know, the things they do. I don't know, the little, like the priest at one point comes and he throws holy water on everybody. But like, I don't know why, but I've connected on some higher order level with it, where I'm having this incredibly emotional experience. I'm like gripping the pew in front of me, trying to not sob because something is so meaningful to me about it. And I know it's not like that for everybody. And I don't want it to seem like I'm special or something, because I don't want to lose whatever that is, because I feel very lucky that I'm having this connection to what's happening. But anyway, I don't know where it is. I'm singing in the church choir now. I find myself drawn towards this Catholic church, the community there, but more so like the history of it, the tradition of it. Like, I've gone to a few Latin masses that's fully in Latin. The whole experience is very like, no one talks to you. You don't talk. It's all focused on God. There's Gregorian chant. You know? Anyway, I haven't really processed it, but, and I don't really know what is happening, and I'm not here to convert anybody, but I just, to sum it all up, I think there's so much more than we're possibly able to conceive, and you can frame that in a religious way or in a neurological way. Like, I know that when you do mushrooms, your parts of your brain, gateway parts of your brain, are deactivated. It's like the doors of perception, Aldous Huxley, like they're allowed to swing open and everything that's already there is allowed to come in. So does that mean that God is the Christian God, or is God like an octopus with many tentacles, which I've experienced? I don't know. But I just know that like a life without meaning is intolerable for me. So, you know, do I need to have meaning in my life? Yes. Does everybody? I think yes. Do they have to get it from the same source? I don't know. I'm not going to say yes or no yet. Long rant.
What a beautiful and harrowing story and journey you're on, dude. Like, I didn't know any of that stuff about your upbringing, and I think I do have an image of you. For whatever reason, you said the body thing. I kind of do remember thinking like, oh, Travis is tied to the church. That's it. Like, no deeper thought, just some way. When I think about it, I think of it that way. And then really the time that we spend together is the God Delusion window prior to mushrooms, and then that thing. And I don't think what you're describing is clearly, a lot of it is internal, and the way you're processing things and dealing. So I wasn't like exposed to that. I don't know that we were really talking about it until, and that actually explains a lot. I remember those first times we were doing that and just having you really being very emotional and opening up to that kind of stuff and realizing like, oh, this is profoundly impacting this person that's beautiful and awesome. And it's so cool well, it's cool, man. I don't know. It's such a different journey for me because I didn't have, it was always there in the way that family was, but in the same way that I've turned back toward my family. Like it's just always there. And I wasn't ever having any of these moments like you're talking about where you're bookmarking, like this is a very, like attaching emotion, attaching all that. I just can't think of that. So I'm just kind of always there. And this just allowed me to look at it from a different light and to be like, I think I'm weirdly hung up on these details that are not, they're irrelevant. It's how it's like you're talking about the Virgin Mary or an octopus. Like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if what you get from it and what it does for you is the same result, and if you get hung up on these, hey, they built the thing, it's a statue, it's supposed to be a person, it's supposed to be a thing, this is what it is. Like I saw this thing. It's like, this is one fucking person's interpretation of this. If anything, like doing mushrooms has allowed me to see the universal part of this, where it's like, you can imagine that, the burning bush is a image seen by somebody that's high, right? So you can say like, oh, he did mushrooms and they saw the thing. Well, it's like, yeah, okay, but the mushrooms are really there. They're just in the field. This shit's, the earth is giving this to you. So it's there forever. And the idea that it didn't like influence this is ridiculous, because you think about having like this beautiful trip that you're talking about, like it's so hard to like describe that to anybody, especially somebody that hasn't had the trip before. Like if you have to describe the feelings you're having, this connectivity, this thing that you just tapped into and realized, and you have to explain it to a person that's never done this. Imagine like you have to like create a story and you have to say a thing. How are we going to tell this? And it's like, it just cracks open to me the idea of the Bible and the idea of how we, all this stuff. It's just like, yeah, we're just trying to explain this feeling and this thing, this idea, and be a good person and put good things out into the world, like basic fucking concepts, just.
Can I try to articulate just a few of these concepts that I think are like super simple and core that I feel like get lost in it a little bit. If I could just try, and this is like the mushrooms and the Bible and life kind of. Just imagine, here's my imagine God exists and he creates people because in life, he breathes life into nothingness. Because why? I don't know, because to exist is better than not to exist, I guess. Maybe he was bored. Maybe it's fun for him. But he views us like children, his children, and he wants us to grow. And so he gives us the freedom that, high order consciousness beings sort of deserve. But that with that freedom comes the ability to self-destruct. And he sets us off and we start, self-destructing. We start killing each other and hurting ourselves and feeling like shit. And I just picture, like, we can't really imagine it, but just imagine like loving something so much more than you could possibly, maybe you have kids, you love your children so much. You just, oh, sorry. You just want the best for them. Like you just want them to grow and have happy, good lives. And you know that there are ways in this world, in this harsh world, there are ways to achieve that. And you try to tell them, but they're like, fuck you, I'm going to do whatever I want. They have to go, somehow they have to grow on their own. And I think that something in the story is related to the fact that we were just so lost that then, and again, just take it like a story that you're being told, but that God then was like, this is such a disaster. I'm going to go into this. There's this young lady, this virtuous woman. I'm going to go and be born from her. I'm going to become my own son. Son's podcast. I'm going to go and become human and experience experience what it's like to be a human being. And because you're God, you become a human being. You're the most virtuous human being. You're the perfect human. Sorry, this is what gets me. This is what this concept really gets me. It's you come and then what happens? They like they torture you to death. They literally like spit on you. Some of them love you. Some of them see you for who you are, but most of them hate you. And they torture you to death. I mean, that I know that's brutal. And I think maybe a lot of people are with Christianity, they're like put off by the like the image of like this dude dying on a cross. But it's like the idea that like our God didn't, the Israelites, they were expecting this king to come, and this king is going to come and he's going to lead us to in conquest over the Romans, and we're going to fuck all of our enemies up, and we're going to inherit the earth. And he comes and he's like a pitiful hippie. He hangs out with prostitutes and sorry. He just roams around like talking to diseased people, and sorry, I'm getting totally like absorbed in this vision of this thing right now. It's like kind of very embarrassing actually. But it's like he doesn't come to lead you in conquest. I just don't want to be fucking crying like a little bitch all over this podcast.
Dude, you're doing a great job at visualizing this in a way, and I can understand why you're getting emotionally impacted by it, because like you've told a story right here that I've heard my whole fucking life and never heard this way. I'm being honest. It's just very interesting that it's incredible, and you're so very lucky to see it this way and to feel it this way. I think like, again, that's the thing. I look at like my dad and I think like he means this, he feels this. And I haven't never felt it the way you're feeling it right now. It's like, you're so fucking lucky to see it that way, because you're absolutely right. And the one thing you're describing is a realization that comes with like a lot of these like psychedelic experiences where you do tap in and see it. You get the opportunity to see life framed this way. And you're totally right, man. It's what you're describing is incredible.
Yeah. And I guess to wrap that thing up, it's just, God comes, we kill him, but through dying, he sort of like relieves us of this burden, that we've done to ourselves. And we will never be perfect, but it's fine now. It's kind of like, it's not about being perfect anymore. It's about knowing that you don't have to carry this weight. The battle's been won. You've been forgiven, so if you just take into your life, forgiveness and self-sacrifice are the highest thing you can do with yourself, with your life. What should I do with my life? Forgive people, forgive yourself, and sacrifice yourself when necessary. Not for everybody, not for every Tom, Dick, and Harry. But I mean, something about that. So it's not complicated. It's core to the human experience. And yeah, it's just that idea that our God is this like sort of pitiful sacrifice, a sacrifice, a tortured sacrifice, not this like badass king. I mean, that's just so contrary to the way human history has been for thousands of years, that there's something about that that's very meaningful to me. Anyway.
Yeah, that idea that we would perceive greatness only as the way that we've defined greatness. Like we've defined greatness as this thing. It must come in that form. And to contradict that is, to speak on our way of thinking. It's like, you're wrong. Yeah, man.
It's just like, I just feel like sometimes, because here's the thing, the real me, the human me, like I want to kill people all the time. And I know my girlfriend, I say things like that, and my girlfriend's like, please don't say stuff like that. But it's like, I'm driving yesterday and I start to have this fantasy of this guy that like, of just like taking him out of his car and like doing something. And I realize like I am a violent, hypersexual, beast man, like deep down. And if I don't have And maybe some people don't have that, you know, maybe some people can sort of be a virtuous without the higher order, you know, thing, the higher power. But I just feel like, I don't know about you, but like, I've lived long enough now to know that I will steer myself into complete chaos. I would be I think I would just be in jail or something probably. If I let myself indulge in every impulse, I would be in jail for sure.
Well, yeah, yeah. I think a lot of us would be for sure. I think that's, for it to like come at this point in your life, it's important. And I think like it's important to go on that journey, like you were saying, like you're supposed to touch into this world to understand it, because without understanding it, there's no reason to prevent it. If you don't understand how bad it can get, then you're not trying to be protective over that idea. So I think that journey is super important. And for it to come at this point in your life, like this is the point where we have to like make a decision internally, like how are we doing this last run? You know what I mean? Like here's our lessons, not last, but how are we doing this next run? Like, because if you don't learn off of this stuff, then, and how this goes, like, that, like you're not going to progress. You can see that. It's like you only have a certain amount of years left to like to get to this idea of yourself. And it's like if it's not that, then fucking move away from it and find whatever it is that can allow you to do that. And just creating discipline and order within your life it becomes like one of the most important things. And I think getting yourself there, how you get yourself there, and using this as a way to get yourself there is like super important and valuable to people. And I think that's why it does happen at this point in your life for one reason or the next. I mean, it's like, mushrooms cracked it open for us and a lot of people, I think, in our generation. But I also think like life events, things that cause a super altered perspective, like that can happen, that just like kind of open you up to just seeing this differently and gaining a lot of like benefit off of the control and the barrier, and not the barriers, but like just guidance that it offers to say like, hey, this is these things, some basic core things. And if you kind of like stick to these basic core things, it's going to help you. And you can see so much now of how that doesn't exist in people's lives. And like, you could pretty much with certainty say, like, if you were living with those core things in mind, you wouldn't be in this situation, and you wouldn't be doing this, and you wouldn't think these things if you were just, and so when people say like that man needs Jesus, it's like, yeah, because he's fucking way off the path and you can see it, if you can see how off the fucking path you are. And if you were even sort of in line with some core value shit, you wouldn't be anywhere the fuck over there, and that is applicable to so much in our society right now. And you can look at that and say like, if I'm going to be better, if I'm going to judge that and I'm going to say that's wrong, then I need to be like better than that. I need to show that I'm better than that. And I think that's a part of like the evolved human at this point in your life. It's like you kind of get the choice to make that, make there.
Yeah, and like I feel like, I mean, to use the term spirituality, it's just this attempt to like find your priorities. I think, like, I know we've done mushrooms together, and I feel, and we've treated it usually as like a very serious thing. Like some people do mushrooms and they party, which is crazy to me. I don't know how
Right.
you possibly do a real dose of mushrooms and not curl yourself into a fetal position for like at least 2 hours before you like can climb out of it and then have something to say. But I think we've maybe both gone into the trip with our little offering of, here's what I'm going through. I have a problem and I can't figure it out. And you're like, here, help me figure it out. And I feel like as the trip comes on, a wind blows and that thing you brought, it blows away and it just disappears into this vastness of this other thing, where the mushroom's almost like, oh, your little problem. That's funny. Here, you know. And I think like taking that into life, we get so focused on these little things, these little problems. little goals or whatever. And like, it just turns the volume down. Any good spiritual practice turns the volume down on all that noise and just like, all right, what really matters here? And you said earlier, you said last run, this is your last run, but then you changed it and said when you're next. I think it's your last run. This is it. From this moment till you're dead, that's all you've got. And you have no idea, it could be today. Hope it's not. Pray it's not. But like, this is your last run. This is all you've got. And like, if you don't have your priorities in order and you don't have yourself focused on the right targets, you're going to drive yourself into a ditch, and you're going to hurt a lot of people along the way. Oh,
yeah. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, man, it is, I've had so many moments where, doing mushrooms has just like reoriented me in that way. And, when was the first time that you did them? Was it with me the first
first time was by myself. And
Okay.
I started to freak out. And we had talked about mushrooms so much that I actually tried calling you. I tried calling you because I was freaking out. And you didn't answer. It's okay though. Because I also tried to call my girlfriend at the time. She didn't answer. So then I called my mom. And then I had this profound experience. It all worked out how it was supposed to.
Yeah.
But the first time we did them together, I'm pretty sure it was upstate. But can I tell a memory from one of these times? I think you probably know what
Please.
I'm going to share, but if you're comfortable, I'd love to hear your side of it.
Totally do it.
We had done it. So me, you, and Rick Shine and Nick went upstate and rented an Airbnb with nice isolation, nice naturey space. I think it was where there was the lake. You kind of go down some steps and there's a little lake there. And we all do them, and we're all sort of off in our own struggle, because I feel like half of it is a real struggle to kind of let go and let it happen. And I had my thing, but I was coming back, and there's just this impulse I've had when I'm coming back into my body. Like, I feel like I pop out of it first, usually, and everyone's still in that session. And I just want to make sure everyone's okay, So I was going around sort of checking in, and I didn't know where you were. And then I found you sort of off to the side of this is going to get me choked. Everything fucking gets me choked up. Is my testosterone low? I'm going to take exogenous testosterone before these podcasts. I found you over on the side of the house, and you were kneeling down. I can't even look at you when I tell this story. We're so gay. You're kneeling down in front of this old tree stump, and the tree had fallen long ago. It's just the stump, and the stump is like rotting and falling apart and soft, and probably full of bugs, and just kind of this ancient tree stump. And you were crying in front of this tree. And I don't think you could articulate it. I think you maybe in a few words were able to in that moment, and then in later you were able to articulate that you'd identified something about that with your grandfather, who was at that point maybe close to passing away. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I always do love hearing you recount stories, but obviously that moment has stuck with me forever since then. But my grandpa had just died, I think 2 or 3 weeks before that, and I think that he's patriarch of our family. He's top guy. He was the fucking and he had 6 kids that had grandkids. Like, he just had this lineage about him, and I don't think I was thinking about it going into that. Like, I do remember being pretty, obviously, very sad and hurt, but it was like, it was coming. It wasn't like a spontaneous thing. And I think I came to peace with it in there. And I remember being on the deck it was a beautiful home that I've like since tried to replicate with almost every mushroom experience I've ever had. Because it was great because it was at the corner of a lot, and the deck went into the woods. So like you were in the trees everywhere, and it was an amazing spot for that. And I remember just climbing over the deck and going into the woods and feeling like really pulled to this thing, and getting in front of this log. It was like it was the bottom of a dead tree that had fallen, and it was rotting out, and it was dead. It was gone, and moss all over it, and just being like looking at it, just being feeling so drawn to it, coming there, like falling to my knees and just being like, there with my grandpa in that moment. Like this was him. And I was like looking around at all these like beautiful trees that were young and healthy and spread all around. And it just felt like, yeah, this is just like a metaphor for everything. Like it was for him in general. Like it was just like, here he is, he's gone, but look what he brought here, and look how long this will go, and how many tentacles this has, and how impactful he was on this community and you and your space, and the way you can like core feel him, and just like you have him in the same way that like all of my cousins and my aunts and uncle, like all that, and just really feeling that. And I think coming to peace in that moment, and I just like remember your like hand on like not even knowing you were coming up, and just feeling like, and you just being like, are you okay? Like, and not how the fuck do you explain that, but like, just being, and just coming back out of that, and coming back on like, you left, and then I was there for a little bit more, and then I just like coming back onto it and just feeling like totally at peace with that idea. And like, this is just it. This is life. And kind of getting the opportunity to like reframe something that was weighing on me. Um, and yeah, that when I look at like the 4 or 5 very like important lessons and feel like things that I have, like that is just one that I'm like super grateful for, and just being able to like contextualize that, and to process that, and to have like the space and freedom to do that, um, it's something that in like recent mushroom trips has gone away from me, because of just the way that I do it, and the group that I do it with is more of like, there's just in positive way, more like fun, antic-y things going on, rather than like, hey, the way you and I have always done them is, to me, the way that I like hold them as like the most important way to do them, where you're going in with a intention or a thing that is weighing on you, and allowing it to obliterate that thing, and to contextualize it in a way that just like helps you manage it. It's not going to solve your fucking problems, but it will allow you to see it from a different angle, which a lot of times can be the solution, or can lead to the solution. And that being just one of those, and being like feeling like safe enough to have that is the most important part. Because when I look at like the way that I do them now, it's not that it's not safe, but it's just that it's framed so differently that like anytime I don't get the opportunity to have those internal like just deep search things. I feel like there's just something kind of always going on, that and not in like a going out and partying way, but just like people at different stages milling around, moving around, some of them having, not like, most of them not really wanting to go that far in. But I'm always like, there's no way I'm doing any, like, to me it's that or it's nothing. Do it that way or do it. So I try to always have my version of it, but in recent years I like haven't had that. And it's like, if I'm by myself, I get that. I had one that was very important that is very important to me. I think it's the last time that I had this. And I was by myself in Atlanta. It was right before I got married. And I had a ton of anxiety. I'm getting married, so why wouldn't? But to me, something was different. Like something felt wrong. Like if I was feeling anxiety because I was going to have to go in front of people and get married and be the center of attention and do this thing and be, my wife's Greek. So I had to like learn a dance for our wedding and like do all these like just Greek things I was nervous about. And I got really nervous about being center of attention, but I could feel that something else was wrong. And I didn't know what it was. It was like really eating at me for like weeks leading up to my wedding. And, you're in a small apartment, you're with your wife, you're dealing not only with like regular work and life and all that kind of shit, but also like this big event. And so like home life never felt like I could go off and do it. I just felt like I had too much on my plate. And the last like 3 or 4 days before uh, we got married, my wife went up to New York first, and I had like a half a week or something like that. So um, weekend comes and I take them and go walk through the park, and I'm just in the park finding different little trees to hang out in, little different spaces. And, sitting on a log actually, I went right to the place that you and I went. So down there where there was that like little creek is that park. And I couldn't get all the way down there. I was like tripping out a little too much of like, I'm going to get poison ivy. And I like, there's this like lead up point where it's like, you start to feel like it's time to go lock in, because if you don't go lock in, you're going to like kind of miss what's intended for you. And I just had that feeling of like, go find a place to sit down right now and just like lock in, let it happen. And I was looking down at that creek that you and I both sitting on top of like a really old rotten tree, looking down at that, and just started to recognize that it wasn't that I was getting married, and that wasn't something that I was afraid of, but it was that I knew the next part of my life was about to start. And not in marriage, but I knew that in getting married, we were going to have kids, and we were going to have kids right away. And I knew that. And it was kind of an unsaid thing, but it was like, we were supposed to get married 2 years before COVID shut us down. So we like didn't. And that was supposed to be our window where we were married, but not having kids. And like, we were just up against the window where we were going to have kids. And I wasn't actively thinking about that, but it was weighing on me so much in knowing that like, when we get married, that's it. Like, you're going to start trying to have, and it did happen that way. It was like, we got pregnant essentially on our honeymoon. So like, it did happen that way. And I knew it was going to happen that way. And everything was about to change, not because of a wedding, but because of like, I'm about to be a dad. And I knew that. And I just down here, and again, never was not talked about at all. It was just, we knew it. My wife knew it too. But that was really up against that. And I think I wasn't looking at it. Like, I couldn't understand, what's this thing I'm feeling? And when I was sitting on that log staring down at that creek, I just had that like realization that like, this is why you're feeling this, but it's okay. It's okay that you're feeling it that way. Once I was able to see what it was that I was actually afraid of, then I was like, well, then I'm not afraid of this thing. And then it's going to be one step at a time, and you're not doing it alone, and you're doing it with, your partner who you've decided is like the one that you can do this with. And just finding a peace in that. And like, I don't even know who I'd have been at my wedding if I didn't have that moment. You know what I mean? Like, I found a peace that it did blanket my whole experience at my wedding, the peace that I found in that moment. And I would have gone through my wedding conflicted without understanding the confliction. Like, I wouldn't have known what it was that was pushing up against me. And I think that would have tainted everything, because I think a part of me would have worried it was my wife or the decision or something like that. Not that was even anywhere in my orbit, but like, what is it? If you can't ID what this feeling is, what is it? And why are you feeling it? And like, all the things that I was worried about, I did with such ease at my wedding. And I feel so much like that had to do with that trip beforehand, just allowing myself to contextualize it and to see really what it was. And, man, and then I consider the next trip that I had that blew that one out of the water was having my kid, and not actually not being on anything at all, that him being born was. And so to like, I can link these two things, like, this thing gave me the ability to feel free in moving through to the next part of it. And then here is the fucking reward. Like, like that like, it was telling me like, don't worry. This is going to be very good. Don't worry. And then showing me a year later how good it could be, like almost exactly, because my wedding was June 26th, and we had my son 1 year later, July 7th. So like, it was literally a year. It was like just a year almost exactly. And anyway, so and then since then, I've never had, or I haven't had a trip of that like substance. I've tried the amount, but again, because of the like people that I've been around, it just has never really gotten there. But yeah, so I like hold on to those, and one of those ones that I hold on to is that moment with my grandpa in the woods, which was like, it was him. It was him as much as the, sort of shell of him that was in hospice was. It was more him to me in that moment than he ever was when he was in the hospice. I remember being in hospice and just being like, this isn't even the fucking guy. You know what I mean? And like being so like kind of crushed by that because he was so mentally um, with it for so long, and he was such a curious person. He wrote books, and he thought about psychology, and he really thought about the psychology of what he did and what people did, and thought about society. And I remember when COVID came, thinking like, I wish he was here to like tell me his thoughts on it. I wish he was. And I've thought that so much in my life. Just like I wish he was here just to hear him and who he is. So I was in hospice. He wasn't any of that. And that's what he really was to me. So I went a year with him that way. And it was more him in that log than it ever was in hospice. And like, that's, I think, really what like, just being able to see it and to see that like if it all is kind of the same, well, then you should be able to see your grandfather or your dad or your mom in other things. If it's all the same, then you should be able to find that core part of them when it's time to find them, and it shouldn't be that strange that you would like who cares the fuck anybody else? It doesn't matter. It's about you and your connection to this whole thing. And so, yeah, I don't know, ranting a little, but I just thought of that since then, like that, and the idea that like I'll feel the presence of my dad around in moments with my son and things like that, where it's just like, yeah, but if there's a part of them that is really, if you're saying everything is connected and you believe that to a degree, whatever degree it is, then like you should be able to find that stuff in other things. And being open to it, and what you're doing, going to church, to me says like that you get to the fact that you like get to express that side once a week, you get to tap into that thing. I'm so jealous of, because I think I'm really missing that. I think it's got to be something that really hits that thing. And I don't think I've felt that at church, not to say that I couldn't by really putting forth effort towards it. But I think some of the things that you can go back to in your life probably help that. Like I think my relationship with it, just kind of being like, "Meh," because it's that, I think that hurts, because I'm looking for something that kind of gets me there on a more regular, whether that's like meditation or whatever. But anyway, I'm all over the place. But I would just say that you're very lucky to have that bit of it, where if you can like tap into it, that's huge.
I think that is what the appeal of it in a way is. And I know people get this with meditation. It's like you can't do mushrooms all the time, but it's like you want to feel in communion with whatever that experience is, that highly spiritual, meaningful experience. You want to have, maybe not such an extreme level all the time, but it's like, I feel like anyone that's done any psychedelics eventually comes out of it like, okay, how can I create a practice where I can find my way into, sorry, I got distracted. I'm super ADD. How can I find a practice where I can get in contact with whatever that is on a regular basis? Because I know that that's going to pull me up, to use a analogy that it's like we keep coming back to. It's like this higher order idea of like when you resonate down here on the bottom, you're horny and angry, and not that horny is bad, but it's like you're kind of like more of an animal, which can be fine. When someone's attacking you, you kind of want to resonate. If you have to defend your family, you want to be like a monster when you have to become the defender of your family. But like to have a practice that gets you up into that higher level. I wanted to ask you, do you believe in like an afterlife? Do you think that when people die, some aspect of them, I mean, I don't even, there's a million ways to interpret that, but like, have you thought about, do you
Right.
believe?
I will admit to that. I don't think about it often, but I do think if I think about, I think there's a something left over but I like to think about it. I like to think that there would be some level of it, and that it would just be like the purest of pure that you put out there gets to still be there a little bit or something like that, you know? Um, and then that's why the people that you've interacted with can hold on to those things the most or whatever. Um,
Like,
what are your thoughts on it?
have
Where
you
are you with it?
ever heard, Terrence McKenna? I feel like
Yeah.
we've talked about him before, but the OG, in a lot of this stuff. But like he talks about the ecology of souls, how he believes when you go into these, for him, DMT realms, like it's almost like you're these presences that you're encountering. They're not just machine elves from another dimension, but they're actually like the shamans in the jungle call them ancestors. And then when he said
Right,
he's
right.
pressed them, like, what do you mean by that's just like the nice way of saying dead people, like people who have died are there. And personally, I've had a mushroom experience since we were doing them together, where I was also with a group where it wasn't really I couldn't really lock into like maybe the vibe that we have together on mushrooms, but we were in a big area, an Airbnb with a lot of land, a lot of like all very isolated in the woods, but then within that nice like grass and a lot of curves and like so I just went way away from everybody. I find being in that state around other people is it's just too intense. It's too much. Like for me to answer that ringing phone of the trip coming on, I have to go be somewhere by myself if I'm not around people that are also kind of doing the same thing. Anyway, during this, the sort of the peak experience when I was able to let go and pick up the phone and go through this kind of very intense experience of travel. It feels the sensation that you're traveling to some destination, and then you arrive. And I saw myself as like this light, this sort of white, like picture it from overhead, bird's eye view, sort of a white orb, you could say. And swirling around me were these sort of red orbs. And the closest the impression to me was the ones swirling closest to me were my closest relatives that had passed away, my great grandmother, people who I knew. And the further away this like pinwheel, this circling pinwheel of souls, the further away it got, the deeper into my like ancestry it went. So I wasn't as like they weren't as the resolution on them wasn't as high because I didn't really, but I sensed them. I sensed being mobbed in a sense by the spirits of my ancestors, my family, my ancestors, and just this feeling that they were with me, and I sensed like hands, if not hands, not physical hands, but whatever we could imagine hands would be in this situation, reaching out and touching my head and swirling around me and like feeling like you have all these people behind you. Like they were here. They physically did things in this world that led to you, some good things, mostly, hopefully, maybe some bad things, but it's irrelevant what, in a sense, it's more like this spiritual lineage. I don't know. That's pretty much it. But I found that really, I think about that all the time. Like, I try to hold on to something of that. Like, you're not alone. You're not in this world alone. Like we talked about last week, your dad said you want to behave as if anyone could walk through that door at any time, you know, and then you start to think like, man, if my ancestors can see me, are they seeing what I'm doing all the time? you know,
Right.
so hopefully not, but
Yeah. I mean, and then the idea that like this the part that would be left over, or at least the part. This is what I want to think, and this is what I feel. I think on mushrooms, like I've never the idea that the bad trip idea, like
mm,
knock on wood, I've not had that. I do think a lot of that has to do with environment. I think that you have control over how you sort of set that up initially. And I can see how altering the environment that I do them in super drastically and doing a very different thing would probably lead to some level of a bad trip. But I have always thought this idea that like, it's not really a bad trip. It's just like something you're supposed to be, if you have to like kind of go through this, it was trying to show you that you have to sort of like go through this thing. And then the version of us that taps into that space, I do feel like is the most pure version of us. And I like to think that that's the part that gets to stay. Do you know what I mean? Like that pure thing. And so this thing that you're tapping into, it should only feel warm. It should only feel, because even you were saying like you've done mostly good things, you've done bad things. So the bad things, it's almost like they don't get to come in. Like you don't get to be a bad guy and have this part of it. Do you know what I mean? Like there feels like there's something I believe about that. Like I don't believe that like a bad guy could do mushrooms and get to tap into that same part, because he's not true enough. I'm not to say that by any means that I'm that, but I'm saying like real bad. So I like to think that like those things, those little things that are touching you, showing you like we're here, it's all like the most pure, it's all the most good that those people left off. And that's a part that like gets to kind of stay in that space, yeah, because that's, all these like things like the 10 commandments and all that kind of stuff, like things that are just trying to show you like, these are the good ways to like, don't kill people, don't steal things, don't wish you had other people's shit, just like stay being good, do good, all that kind of stuff. And I think it's like, it's kind of showing you like, that's the part that's going to like carry over, the part where you're trying to like do this stuff and stay focused on these things.
It feels like there's this spiritual world and then there's the physical world. And somehow we are like physical things that have come to life with a spiritual presence or essence. And like there are rules in that world. It's like there is no bad or evil, or it's just potential. It's lightning fast. It's just ideas and potential. But it's almost like it doesn't have teeth until it comes into this hard, cold world of matter. But unfortunately, like because of the laws of the universe, the physical world we live in, things get brutal. Like you look at nature's so brutal. And like we come from that lineage of just brutal animal murder. And, we still kill beings and we eat their flesh, But
right.
I guess my point is, it feels like there's a trajectory to go from the animal base physical material world and to somehow reach into the higher level spiritual world and make that a reality here. Do you ever get that sense with like the mushroom trips that it seems very, whatever you encounter or experience in those experiences, it seems very concerned with downloading something to you. like it has a point to it's not just colors and shapes and fun. It's like this is part of a highly meaningful, compacted, zip file that I'm going to download into you. And then over the next weeks to years of your life, you're going to uncompress and process and implement. So it does feel like there's some point to it, the direction.
Totally. I mean, like, I think I totally agree with that. I think that's what's happening. And maybe you can speak to this too, but like when you're at church and you're like really you're actually opening up to that there is some bit of a message is trying to come at you, and they're trying to contextualize it in these words and these things that they're saying and these stories that they're telling, but just trying to kind of give you these little things for you to sit with for the next couple of days to like start to see how it can be brought into your life, And I see that like, again, with my dad, like the way that he'll come back from church and try to take the homily or the, all that stuff and just try to kind of like show how it is in the world. Like, while we're doing this is the thing I'm thinking. I can't help but think about when Father Jim said this, remember when he was saying that? Like, my fucking dad does it all the time. And like, the idea that like, it is a message. It's just like, we're trying to give you a message. I mean, that's what the homily is, the one that's the sort of like interpretation of things, right? Like, here's the gospel, here's the homily. I think that's what it is. Here's the gospel, here's the homily. Like, here's the story as it's written. Here's the idea of here's the idea of how to contextualize it in your life. And so I think it is that. It's like, we're just trying to give you these little messages, these little things, these little like core things again. And like you're saying, it's a little zip file of like, hey, here's the information that I want you to see. And like, so I think in all of these different like mushroom experience, or like truly being in it while you're at church or meditating or whatever it is, we're finding, like, I've found moments with my kids that have been this, where like, I'll see the most ideal version of myself. And then that's the thing I'm trying to like strive to then do. And so you just know, like, that's the guy I want to be. Like, when I'm with them doing this thing and I'm doing that thing, that's the best. I want people to see me this way. Not even that, that's a bad way to, but that's how I want to see myself.
Yeah.
I want people to see that, or I want myself to see, like, this is the thing, to, like you were saying with like looking towards Christ, like that idea of like, we're just aspiring to be the best thing. Like, it's hard to go and replicate this, and there is no necessary, like, you press this and this and this, and then you're that guy. It's like, there's a lot of things that have to get you to that place. Like, you have to kind of be at peace with yourself in a way that you can let go all the other things that are hanging you up from being this guy. And I think that, like, yeah, I don't know, a constant sort of reminder of that, going to church, doing these things, or meditating or doing, is like the way to find it, is to just constantly be reminding yourself of it and constantly be unpacking those messages that are being sent to you, and doing it with frequency so that you can keep receiving the messages, rather than just like, the mushroom thing. I do it once a year now. And again, like, sometimes I'll have those, but not to the level that I used to, but where you just like try to hold on to it. And it just feels like for a couple months later, it slowly is like, you're remembering, like, yeah, man, remember we were trying to like frame, you were seeing it this way. Remember when you were seeing it this way? Cause you just like go from clouded view that you are to this instant clarity. And then you go right back to clouded view. And it's just like, you have to try to remember how you were seeing things. And like, it's so hard to take that in, but it's still in here because you did it. So as the time goes on, you just start to get little glimpses at that thing, and the opportunity. I'm not saying everybody does this, but the opportunity to be like, oh, that's right, that was a lesson.
What's the homily of the mushroom trip?
Exactly. And it's like this, but then you, as a normal dude, as the guy that isn't tripping, and you just living your life the way you've constructed it, now have to take that thing and put it in there. You actually have to do work. And it's the same thing with going to church. It's like, you can't just go to church and be a good person. You have to like go to church, absorb the message that's being said there, and then apply it to your life. That's the way. Like, just going every Sunday because your dad tells you to go doesn't solve anything, and it doesn't mean anything. It's like, it's only about finding the thing that taps you, hits you like at that core level, and then taking that and applying it on. I think like that's where the disconnect has always happened with me, is that it's always just felt like this thing I had to do. And that now I'm starting to reframe it only in that I can see what it's doing and how it's affecting others. I certainly see how it affects my dad with much more clarity than I ever was able to as a kid. And I still don't feel those things on a personal level, but I don't have any problem with it. And I see it. I try when I'm there to find those little tiny moments, and I'm not saying it's never happened. It's happened for a couple seconds or whatever, where I'm like, I can see sort of what's going on. But then it's like, but yeah, just taking it, finding the thing that like really allows you to kind of cling to, or like allows you to kind of really be a part of the journey, I think allows you to kind of receive the messages on a better level.
Yeah, that's like exactly what I started as you're talking. I'm thinking like, it's like we want to be good. We want to be good. We want to be good men. But what does that even mean? Like, we want to be virtuous. We want to do the right thing. We want to be good people, to good fathers, good sons, good partners, whatever. But it's like, and it feels like religious structures it's trying to give you the tools to do that. But it's like, it's still a little bit like, well, why? And I just had this thought that, like, when you do mushrooms, and something in your brain opens up, you're getting all of this stuff download. There's a connection that happens. but then it goes away when the mushrooms go away. So what do you do then? Well, maybe there's a way that you can act and you can behave that we call virtue, that with every virtuous act, you are setting in place a little piece of machinery, and it kind of seems like, why am I doing this? Or your dad is like out in the yard and he has these pieces of metal and he's like fusing things together and it doesn't make any sense. And you're like, why are you doing this? This just, and he's, no, it's really important that we put this machine together. And you're like, you're just kind of like, well, okay. But then I sense the way it works is like you toil away at trying to be virtuous, but in doing that, you're constructing this antenna, let's say, and then all of a sudden you're virtuous for long enough, you do the right things long enough, you've aligned your life for long enough that in a sense you've built this spiritual antenna that you flip it on and woo, the thing powers up, and then now you can connect to those things that maybe you can connect to on mushrooms. You can do it anytime. That would be the dream, right? Does that make any sense? Like these good things that the men we want to be good antennas to the higher power, to God. And if God can then connect through this antenna that we've built through the virtue in our own lives, it's not about being, look, I'm a good person, I go to church. It's no, I'm desperately trying to be a proper antenna so that we can save ourselves from the agony that is this world, and maybe a few good ideas will come through, but it's really about making this world as much like that world of infinite possibilities and joy and love, as possible. But we can't do it unless we've built the tool, and then like your antenna connects to mine, and then all of a sudden we have this massive like connection to the Holy Spirit, we'll say. I don't know.
Totally. And then
cool.
That's what like a proper and like, like the top tier type of church in your mind would be. It'd be like a community of people that like have fully, just or have framed things this way so that they are seeing like, I am independently responsible for building up this machine for not only myself, but for the people around me. And, fuck, man, when you say it that way, like, I'm thinking about like my dad and the idea that like he's had these kids and he's felt this way and he's wanted to build himself into a community for these things, because I think he does see it this way. Like whether he frames the imagery of it differently is irrelevant, but like I think what you're describing is what he feels. And the idea that you would have children thinking we're going to bring them up in this, they're all going to be a part of it together communally. We're going to have that. No, we're going to have our own antenna that is our family thing. And we're going to get this all going. And then looking around you and seeing like, that's not how it's going. That's not how they're, how can I get them to see this? The way that I see it as something that brings them connect closer to this feeling where things are peaceful and things are right and we're on the right virtuous path and we're doing all this stuff. I see it as that. I just want to bring them into it, and I just want them to be a part of it, and I want them to want to do this, because why wouldn't you want to do it? I've seen it. Why wouldn't you want to do it? Fuck. He probably sees that way, and it probably fucking crushes him that my siblings have and myself have not gone the path, because not like he's not been especially in later years, to me, it's not been about, you got to go, you got to baptize your kids, you got to do this stuff. Like, that's just what you do. It's not been about that, really. It's been more about this idea that like, there's a feeling here I'm trying to give you guys. I want you to say, so I see it. I see sort of how he's done that, and how it must, he doesn't push, he's not pushing, but he must feel that. And it must be a real internal battle that he's up against. And when my sisters say or my siblings say it gets brought up to them, and it's it hits them in this weird way. It offends them, and then they triggers them. They start doing things, and now they're fighting. All of a sudden, it's like, yeah, I'm thinking about my dad. I feel bad for him because I feel like he probably just wants to communicate this thing, and all of a sudden, people that are part of him are framing it in this bad, yucky fucking way. And it's like, what are you doing, dude? That's not what I'm talking about. And getting very defensive of this thing that you love and that you know will bring you fucking peace. This will help you. This will set you free. Not to, but like there's an idea about that. There's that feeling that is attached to that like he must fucking think, and he must want so bad to give that to his kids, and it must really hurt to not have them see it that way. And to not only not see it that way and to just be like, hey, look, we see things differently, but instead to apply all these yucky fucking things that the world is responsible for in a lot of ways. My sisters have not generated this opinion on their own, right? They sit inside a whole, camp of people that have framed church and Christianity and Catholicism, especially, like that way. And so it's not coming from nowhere, but it must really hurt to see it framed that way. To be like, fuck, it's not what I was, not what I'm trying to say. Like you've complicated this and mucked it up so much. It's not what I'm trying to say. I can just imagine that internal frustration that he must feel, and you describing it that way just made me understand, like, that's probably the way he sees it and what he wants to impart and the struggle he's got in this part of his life, Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's overwhelming, I think, for anyone to think how, again, I'm just lately forcing myself to use certain words, but it's just because it's just the words that our grandparents used were a little more direct. So it's like, I guess maybe I'm drawn to going back to just talking about good and evil and God and the devil and angels and demons, but it's just how effective if there is this war over our souls, or there's this battle playing out, how effective is it for the evil side to take the symbol of the thing that we've built up, the institution of the church, which is sort of history's accumulation of antennas to God. That's really its purpose. It's like, we've figured out, we're going to throw in all of these, we have all of these songs and these readings and ceremonial acts, and this is how we do it because we believe, based on thousands of years of trial and error, that this is a pretty good way to connect to that antenna. That's the best interpretation of it. How effective is it for evil to come in and rewire it so that it's broadcasting absolute horrors? I mean, priests molesting children. Like, it's if evil was a political party, or evil was a brand that's acting out in its own interest, of course, the best thing you could possibly do is go to the priests, tempt them, twist their minds, drive them insane, and just at least get a few or many to do the worst possible thing we could possibly imagine, and then get them to all protect each other and cover it up. It's like, to me, it's when you frame it as this good, and it's like this institution is it was built by some people with the intention of being an effective transmitter and antenna to connect with God. And instead, by other people all through history, it's been used to invert that exact thing. And that's what evil does. So when you see these things and identify with the good in them, it could be probably heartbreaking to have. I mean, I've experienced it. Now that I'm experiencing what I've talked about, I just want to share it in a way that it connects and means to me. And I've found myself with a group of people here recently, some friends, like, that are all in the same camp as your sisters, where I actually, like, allowed myself to talk about this, which I normally would never do. But I'm just thinking, like, let's just talk about it. Let's see, I'm not trying to convert anybody or get any, but I feel like I'm feeling something that's worth sharing because it's giving me so much. And, there is this thing with a lot of people where it's, they see the priest scandal, they see they've seen so many people that act like they're superior because they go to church, and then they turn around and do the worst things. And as long as they go to church, that justifies it. And there's a list of legitimate things that I'm like, yeah, all of those things are true and terrible. And yet I say, let's tear all the bad, I don't know. There's got to be a way to, maybe that's the conservative in me. I want to conserve what's good and what works that we've accumulated over thousands of years, and let's make it work again. Like, let's renew it. Let's make it work like it's intended to work. It's not done. If people aren't connecting and people don't feel anything when they're interfacing with the antenna, the religion, then we need to do something. We need to make it connect. And I don't know who I'm talking about when I say we, but Christians, I don't know.
It just think that feels like the goal of people in general. Like, it's just like, it is kind of, it should be, in the best case scenario, it's the goal. That's why certain communities like really thrive that have this sort of thing in the core, and it's like, it just allows, just keeps enough, if you can keep enough people on that right path together with those thoughts. And it's like, of course you're plagued by just like human thoughts that are always against you. And so having something there that protects you from that rather than let you slip into the bad thing. And it's like, as a community, if you can get a lot of people like that together, then you can really do great things. And maybe the great thing is only just having these moments every week where we fucking build the antenna and we connect with him and we do that thing. And then you've got people like me who are just kind of like on the outside of that, being like, nah, if that really doesn't really work, I don't fucking know. I'll tell you, no, it doesn't do anything with me. I don't know. And like, so you just have like all these people that are there at church for that. But if you have a core community that like really believes it, then like that's, that seems like the goal of any of these like churches, what it would be is just like, hey, if we can get enough people that like really believe in this, then we can like do great things and we can really connect with God and we can have moments together, and that can affect our whole community. Because if we leave having really done that, then there's no other way than for it to trickle into your life. If you've really done it, if you've not just shown up because you were supposed to show up, if you've really communed with God, then you will have a trickle down effect. And then we'll catch you next week just as it's fading out, and we'll do it again, and we'll fucking recharge it back up, and then we'll let you back into the community and see what you do. And then, oh, it's fucking Sunday again. Let's get it back up again. It's like, and then, I only assume that the people that were going to those masses at 7:00 in the morning on a Tuesday were like, I don't have to wait till Sunday. I can do this every fucking day if I want. Like, I like to think of them as people that are just like, this is my moment. I'm going to wake up early. I'm going to get this. And then that's what's going to go into my day. At the purest level, that's incredible. It's like, that's awesome. I'm doing this every day and getting this little hit where I actually get to touch this and be a part of this. Then it's going to affect literally every day. You're just going to be a better person. You see a kid sitting outside of a church, you're not going to let that fucking kid sit outside that. You're going to go and stand next to him and be like, we're going to wait for your ride, buddy. How's it going? Weather's fucking crazy out here. Like, you're just going to get into it and just like make the kid feel at peace because you see it, because you have touched here. It's you can't not now. You're coming into the world. You're seeing it from a good. You see the good. You can immediately apply to the world. And like, the longer you go without touching that and seeing that, like, of course it gets more mucked up and cloudy and all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, man, I think we cracked it.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
That's it. Yeah. Well, that was a good episode. Well, it's therapeutic.
That was awesome, man.
Even if it's just two guys doing group therapy, if anyone wants to watch along, that's fine too. Yeah. We're just going to build our antennas, and maybe the antenna that you're building doesn't seem to be related at all to what the one your dad wants you to build or is building. But I think all that it takes is one cable, and now he can see what you're doing and what he's doing. They were related. You were co-operators the whole time. It just wasn't obvious.
Right.
Same for your sister. Same for everyone. And last thing I'll say, I'll kind of end it on this. I've been praying, and you pray for a lot of things usually that are very personal, like, please help, help. But I've been saying this thing lately where I'm just kind of asking God if it's possible, maybe he could save everybody. Maybe it doesn't have to just be this way. Maybe if possible, maybe we could all be saved. So anyway, let's hope. Let's hope that anyone watches this doesn't think that at least I'm low testosterone bitch.
No, man. I mean, like, it just shows, it demonstrates how much it affects you, which I think is like incredible. And I'm so happy as you and I get to like explore the last couple of years where we haven't been well connected, to see that like this has been a part of your life, and then like it gives me a lot of joy. And I'm just happy that that's the journey that you're on. That's awesome, man. Yeah, it's a pleasure always to be able to talk to you about this, because I truly don't have this really in my life where I get to verbalize this. And so much happens, I say this before, but just in how you cracked open something for me about my dad and framing it, the way you frame things and the way we're able to frame things for each other is real value to me. So if it helps anybody else, that's great. But like, it's been really nice to see that. And like I said, it's nice to know that this is sort of how the journey you've been on while we haven't been, as well connected. So I'm really excited to see that and glad to hear it.
Likewise.
Yeah, man.
All right.
Well, great episode, dude.
Love you, brother. Take care. Have a great week.
Love you too, man.
And I'll see you next week.
All right, man. Bye.
Bye.